And back at it again. So this will be the first part in the engine removal process, officially titled anyway. So we're going to start with the carburetors. Obviously I've already got the airbox off. I took that off last video. Not sure if it actually was, if it made the cut, maybe not. But it's fairly simple enough to remove. There's just that little strap that kind of goes between the two carbs and hooks up forward of that. Pretty simple. Easy to do. So I'm just going to move on to the carbs. Right now I'm taking off the fuel supply hose straight from the fuel pump. Taking them off carb side, just it's a lot easier for later, and we're going to try to keep this as orderly as possible, maybe to simplify it later on. Moving on to the second one. Yep, still using those same pliers. Leave most of my tools at work, so I just have the most basic of tools at home. So we'll see just how far I can get with those guys. Just that tool, some side cutters, which we'll see later on, and a basic socket set from Mastercraft. Alright, taking the caps off. Feels like a lot more threads than what I was expecting, but what are you gonna do, eh? This part would have been kind of nice to have some decent needle nose pliers for, but these are big enough that you can get with your fingers. Just hold them upside down, pull the spring back. Clip will come out. I've just placed it up there for safekeeping, and then you could just push the cable forward, and it should come right out. Nice and easy, quite simple. Basically a toolless job. Move on to the right carburetor now. Same thing, very quick, very easy. I've sped up this video and cut even more stuff out, so it might not be quite as good of a guide, or I didn't really want to use the word, but vlog for this engine removal. But it is what it is. Oh, what am I doing now? Right, so I was going to pull the carb out, but completely forgot about the primer line. Whatever, no biggie. So then I'll start removing this oil reservoir, or at least take a shot at it. So obviously disconnect the hose. I got a nice little Catalina brand mason jar there that I'm just going to use to capture the excess fluids. And drain what I can from the hose here. I'm just going to speed this portion up a little bit. This is the most painful part about doing videos, is watching it numerous times, trying to figure out exactly what to say, what to do, what to cut, what to not. Alright, so now I am disconnecting the oil supply line from the pump at the base there. It has an inline filter, so it's going to be a little bit of a job to not make too much of a mess, because obviously draining that reservoir is a bit of a pain. Take off the other coolant hose. Check to make sure there's no extra fluid in there just waiting to make a mess. Got the trusty mason jar there. As you can see, not really much coming from there. That's perfectly fine. So now I'm going to start tackling the wires. You got that one bundle that's got a clip that's attached to the reservoir mounting structure there. And then I move on to the wires. Now this is where the regret comes in, because I talked about the last video having had a fire. And for the most part, you'll see that the wire bundles actually don't look so bad coming out of the actual bundle, but the connections on engine side are the stuff of nightmares. And I'm ashamed to say that it was me. I was appalled to see the condition of these wires and how I managed to get to work again. I mean, I'm a little bit impressed that they work, but disgusted at the condition of these things. But I guess at the time I clearly didn't want to pull apart the engine and change out a bunch of the internal components so that way I could actually have proper wires coming out of there. But wow, this is probably one of the most embarrassing things that I've posted. I am glad that this video is only in this kind of quality and that you can't see any better. I forgot to turn off the autofocus on this camera, and so whenever I step in there, it tends to just focus on my jacket. And while I like that jacket very much, it's not the focus of this. Boy, yeah, I got all these zip ties that I had used to jerry rig all these basically homemade connectors and prevent them from coming apart. And to my credit, the little bit that this sled had moved around before I became wise to the lack of cooling ability, it still everything was working from start to finish. I even basically rode it into this shop, which was at one point my living room, which is also another reason why I don't want to make a huge mess. But man, I am hoping that if things go well, I might be able to, if I have to pull the engine apart any further, maybe I'll just get some new components in there and tack that on to the project. And maybe rid myself of this nightmare of which I've caused. I had repressed pretty much most of the memory of having done this, but brought up a lot of sleepless nights. All right, so I think I've disconnected enough stuff here because all the like the CDI box and the ignition coil, they're all hooked up to the oil reservoir and water reservoir here. So I'm just trying to loosen off enough stuff so I don't have to take all the components apart, take them all off, and maybe keep as much stuff together as possible. It might not be as easy to put things back together or take them apart this way, but it definitely makes it a little bit easier to understand where everything is supposed to be when the time comes to put it back together. It also will save some space. If you got nice counters or shelving that you have to store all the individual components, I say have at it. I'll just plug these hoses for the meantime. I really doubt anything's gonna get in them, to be honest, but I don't want to be the guy that finds out. Alright, so just trying to weave some of these other lines around, I believe the linkage that was there was the throttle to oil pump linkage that was kind of in my way. And finally disconnecting the actual oil supply line from the higher up region on the oil reservoir. At this point I didn't feel like I'd make quite as big of a mess doing that. So I just have sort of the bottom hose to be worried about. I'll try to get this thing maneuvered in a way that I can at least put a little jar underneath there and catch any remaining oil. And that's pretty much it.